G'day and welcome back for more Space Engineers Survival. Today we need to build a missile. And to build a missile, I'm going to need some power. Which means I'm going to go and retrieve a little friend who has been sitting in a very dark hole for much longer than it ever should have. It should really have had some spot to sit as pride of place. And the reason I need to go retrieve that little friend, and I'm sure many of you know who I'm talking about, is that I have built a hydrogen engine onto this base. We were starting to run a little bit low on power even though I'd built that new battery. So I think the hydrogen engine is probably going to be the way to go. I'm tempted to let it try and charge up one of these batteries. I turned off the other two so it won't charge them because it's a bit more than we need. And I'll get rid of these ones out here so that we don't need to worry about them. And then I will go and grab our little buddy. It's perfectly set up to land onto this connector and to deliver us more ice so that we can keep that hydrogen engine running for a while to come. And hopefully collect enough ice so that we can then fill the tanks on the missile that we're going to build, since those need to be filled too. And down we go. So here we go. Back in the seat of what is probably my favorite vehicle ever, even though it's ugly, even though it's simple, even though it has never been the best at any job it's done, but it's been the best at doing so many jobs, as in it is such a jack of all trades. It's capable of doing such a wide variety of things, none of them especially well, but still capable, and that's what makes this little vehicle special. Oh, and hang on. Do I have some stuff? Yeah, I've got some stuff on board. Let me go empty that out. Even with just the one burning O2H2 gen, you can just make out a little bit of smoke coming from the top of the volcano, which is kind of cool. Though, now that I think about it, maybe I just need smoke and not fire, so I could potentially replace that with some landing gear, although I think the landing gear do spark, not just smoke. Though I have some memory of at least one point them having just smoke. I'll have to look into that more. Because landing gear are lighter, so I would hopefully be able to use them to allow me to have more of them, basically. And away we go down to the ice lake. This takes me so far back. Oh man, flying this thing. Such a nice wave of nostalgia. I definitely couldn't leave the ugly duckling sitting in that hole and not make it part of the last mission, even though I could easily build something very quickly that would do its job better. It wouldn't do it with so much style. It just wouldn't feel the same. That's about 40,000 ice. That'll do us for the moment. Plus, battery power is on the low side. At least when the thrusters are having to do anything. I think we can see the smoke against the sky just in front of us. I didn't realize the effects were visible from such a long range. It's kind of cool. Here we go. Fuel delivered. Time to build missile. Probably the first part of that will be getting rid of the Rudolph that is just sitting here, since it is not needed. Plus, it appears to be burning energy with its thrusters. Oh. Oops. Didn't realize I was detached. Strong start there, Splitsie. Strong start. Yeah. Let's turn you off. Yeah. So the design for this missile is going to be very tightly fit within this 3x3 large cube space, just so that we can make sure that we do fit out that hole in the roof. The other thing is, that hole in the roof is directly above us. If I make sure that the missile is perfectly aligned, when I detach, all I need to do is shoot straight up. That's going to make things much, much simpler. So in order to ensure that I am directly pointed upwards, I'm going to be building off a rotor. If I built off a landing gear, there'd be a very good chance that I'd have just the slightest bit of a tilt to one side or the other. Obviously not ideal, because then I will take out the door on the way out, and I will take out the silo and not the enemy base. Obviously, not what I want to do. So, what I'm going to do to make this work is build a rotor in the floor, change it over to small head. Let's rotor lock this so it does not spin at all. Then we will add small head. Oops. Still doing that to get rid of it because I keep thinking that's what I need to do. And now, we want to have plenty of large hydrogen thrusters. And I think we should be able to do this in a vaguely interesting way. Something like one there. Oh no, wait, it'll need to be a little further apart than that. More like that. 1, 3, and 4. And that fits very comfortably inside the bounds of what we've got to work with. Don't know that I'll have any great use for this space in between the thrusters, but I think it'll look kind of cool having the quad large hydrogen thrusters working. Then, what it also allows me to do is bring all of these thrusters together in... Oh. Well, that's annoying. Let's restart that. I should do this with conveyor tubes instead, so that they don't disconnect when I replace the blocks for conveyor tubes. Should have thought that through to begin with. Then we can place our large thrusters on there. Then those are all piped up, and they're connected to the base below us. Perfect. Much better. Now, how are we going to do our tanks? I'm not sure one tank is going to be enough for this, and I'm quite comfortable with the idea of having a very large missile here, so we might go with 2 hydrogen tanks. Since these aren't going to be visible, I could place it sideways like that and eliminate a lot of the... Oh, I'm a dope. I got a much better way of doing this. I was about to say I could put them sideways, but I can put them vertically without having to use a large junction if I change this up yet again. Aha. This is thanks to someone telling me to use this as a way of attaching drills to stuff, even though that in Survival Unlikely did not work out well at all, because everything exploded for a reason that still doesn't make sense to me. I can use connectors here. So if I place a connector like that, and then I use... Ooh, will I be able to do this? Maybe I'll just leave one thruster off on one side. The idea I've got in mind would be if I place connectors like that and then have my thrusters around the outside and replace this rotor with an advanced rotor, I'd be able to pipe from the base to this missile straight from below. So I'd be able to fuel it up from below, which would be a lot simpler. So this is what I was thinking. We've now got an advanced rotor below here, which means when I'm ready to fuel this up, I can just connect this port to probably one of these pipes on the... Oh no, wait, they're just decorative. I can probably connect up to this side and actually connect it up to this cargo container. That'd be the quickest, I reckon. And that'll hook us up to our whole piping system, which means we'll be able to fill this thing up with hydrogen. Also, once I get a battery on this thing, I'll be able to get rid of these scaffolding blocks here. Although, I wonder if I can... Oh, excellent. I don't even have to wait that long. I can just use blocks like that to clamp it on and then get rid of these. The reason I don't trust just locking them like this and then disconnecting here is that this section not being powered means that on load, this will probably disconnect, even though it will likely stay connected right now. So I don't want to take that chance. There we go. That's all connected, which means we can then pop a nice, neat hydrogen tank and hydrogen tank. Yeah. That Works perfectly. Then on top of that, we need to go with the core of our missile, the real destructive power of this thing. I'm going to use... You know what? I'm going to use advanced rotors because they look cool. Let's get rid of that head, because it kind of fits with what we're doing here. Then the advanced rotor, we are going to add a rotor head. Is that a large one? I'm betting that's not. Oh, maybe it is. Let's see. Nope. Small head. Alright. We got to do it the tricksy way. Blammo. Ooh, drop that from a bit high. Definitely drop that from a bit high. Let's try that again. Oh, looks like it's good. So dropping the rotor head on and then attach. Because now we can add the thing that is the piece de resistance of this missile. The fact that we are going to be delivering... No! It was the wrong head. Dang it. Why? Why? Okay. Oh, I think I selected the wrong one. Yep. I selected the wrong one. I was thinking the one with the conveyor thing all the way to the edges was the large one. Stupid. Nope. Yeah, there we go. Now we can attach that one, and then we can put our large grid warhead on here. Like so. Obviously, this is not a missile that is going to be printable. This thing is a once-off. We get one shot, and hopefully the destructive power that it brings is adequate to just obliterate what is there. And on top of that, I'm going to... Is it going to be lighter using a rotor? It's going to be smaller using a rotor. I was thinking about how to connect the next series of warheads to this one, and I think a rotor is going to be the best way, because that's sort of 1.5 blocks before then we go to our next warhead. And then we could go ideally one more, and then another warhead. So that'll give us 3 warheads to drop, all by detachment of rotors rather than merge blocks. And then we need our decoys, which I might add some small explosive power to as well. But you can see why I did the 4 hydrogen thrusters, which may end up, if this thing looks like it might be a bit heavy, it may end up getting increased to 8 with them arranged like this. Since that would be an easy option for us to really get some booster power out of this thing. Because those warheads are going to be heavy. This thing's also not going to be able to work very well with inertial dampeners. Because of all the subgrids, it's going to rattle, it's going to miscalculate its weight, it's going to be a nightmare. But it doesn't have to be especially accurate. It's supposed to be sort of like a cluster munition. I'm going to drop each warhead and hopefully all 3 will hit somewhere in the base, and there'll basically be nothing left by the end of it. That's the dream anyway. That is the dream. Thinking about the power source for this missile, I've got 2 options that I think are decent. We need a reasonable amount of power because we want to make sure that the antenna range can be set to maximum. This thing's going to be broadcasting at 50 kilometers for a fair amount of time, because it's going to take us a reasonable travel time to get all the way over there. If I use a hydrogen engine, I'm going to burn some of the hydrogen that's in these tanks, which is less than optimal. It's not what I'd like to do. But if I bring a battery, then I've got a lot of dead weight. And I think the batteries are just the teensiest bit heavier than the hydrogen engine. But I think due to the fact that I'm expecting fuel to be a problem, I'm going to bring a battery. And I could even bring a second one and use atmospheric thrusters for our stabilizers. So our hydrogen is just our power to get this whole thing up, and then our steering and guidance could be done with Atmos using the remaining power in those batteries. That could work. I think that's the way I'll go. no idea if it's the most efficient, and I don't even know if this thing's ultimately going to work. I'm going to make it work, but I don't know if my original design or my initial design is going to work. But time to weld. Lots of weld. Oh, no, I don't really want to weld you up just yet. Leave you without temporarily. Oh, I think we might be out of ice. Yes, we are. Okay, good. Well, not good, but good. What I want to do is I would like to replace our one O2H2 generator here with 2, since we can fit 2 in this space. That's going to increase our power output, and it's also going to give us a decent chance to get our hydrogen tanks aboard our missile full. And now, yes, we're going to burn through a lot of ice very quickly, but we should end up with the power in that battery filled quicker, as well as the hydrogen. And hopefully, the ugly duckling has enough power to fly. Yeah. I know I shouldn't be flying this thing at night. I know this is risky, but I really don't want to wait any longer. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to try and give myself a nice big clearance so we can see that slightly reflective lake and get there all nice and safely. It'd almost be tempting, but I'm not going to do it, to get the goose out and do an ice run with it and the butterball. I just don't have a quick way of transferring from the goose to silo, so it's not going to help us all that much. So I really can't see. Like, if you guys think you can't see, I'm probably going to have adjusted the gamma a little bit so that you can. I can only make out the sky and the vague reflections in the ice. And the reason I know I'm safe is because I've still got an altimeter reading 200 meters above the ground. Or 150. I know I could have built a solar panel somewhere on the silo. I know I could have built an underground wind turbine, but given the roleplay nature of that station, it just felt too wrong to have something that stuck out even more than the connector on the outside, and to have an underground wind turbine. It just doesn't feel right to me. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I just couldn't. Well, here's the proof that they changed the power output of the atmospheric thrusters. There is no way I could carry 75 tons with this thing when we first set out using it. It could barely load the medium container when I started out. So we're quite fortunate, because that means I am able to make the ugly duckling even more effective. It also probably changes the performance profile of the butterball. It could probably fill itself these days. I'm tempted to offload the ugly duckling and then go sit it on the solar axe so that it can get fully charged over there. But that means I'll have to fly back and forth, and I don't really want to do that. 7 minutes. We can see the top of the volcano. We know we're roughly in the right spot. Cannot see anything else. Can see the bridge, but I can't see... Oh, there it is. Just barely make it out. Probably should have put some sort of warning light on the outside of here so that I had an option to turn it on. Oh well. C'est la vie. 6 minutes. Connector in sight. Wall in sight. Taking advantage of impact resistance of drills. Check. It's like back in the old days, crashing everything into everything. At least I haven't flipped the ugly duckling yet. And there we go. So my idea for the fairings was to have them attached via merge block. So a merge block here and all the way around with another merge block small grid on it, which means we'd have 4 parts that can get blown off, and we use some light armor, which is still relatively far from the edge. It's going to give us enough play between the armor and the warheads And if we wanted to, I could put a little bulge in somewhere on it. Although this is going to get heavy. I could put a little bulge in it somewhere to hide decoys underneath the armor plate and potentially some warheads. And that should give us an... Oh, actually, I could just probably hide them on the edge. If I'm going to come out to, like, there. Whoops. There. I'd be able to put the decoys and things on that. Oh, possibly not that block, because that's going to join the 4 bits together. But maybe, like, there. That should let me do the hiding of the decoys and the warheads on the fairings. I'm probably going to go with a separate nose piece, which would mean one of these side fairings needs to have a way to disconnect it. So possibly even just something as simple as this, like that, and then make the nose cone attached to that. And the nose cone would have, again, some more small grid warheads and some more decoys in it. The general gist being, as I'm on target, I drop the nose cone. Then I do a little bit of a spin just to allow them to fall a little bit from me. I pop off all of the fairings. Slow down my approach a little bit, so I'm going to need a braking thruster somewhere on the rear segment. Allow those bits to fall a bit ahead of me, then drop each warhead behind it. Hopefully, the warheads and their rotors that are attached to them will not get shot up by any guns on the base, since the base really only has that one missile launcher, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that the missile launcher will be preoccupied by the decoys in the fairings that drop off first, and then not really be an issue because the warheads will be close enough. Okay, I briefly flirted with an idea that would require piloting that is probably beyond my skill level. The thought came to mind that what if I tried to get this bottom segment, once I've dropped the warheads, if I tried to push it ahead of the warheads, but since the warheads will be in freefall, they will reach terminal velocity and I won't be able to pass them. But even if I could, I just don't like my chances of ever managing to pull that off. But at least when this bottom segment hits the enemy base, it should do some damage as well, since it will be carrying a decent amount of mass, and the kinetic strike from that should be reasonably effective. I think it's somewhat safe for me to turn that off now. I've got a little bit of charge saved up so that I'd be able to restart the base if needed. I'd prefer these to just charge up the small grid batteries on the rocket and on the ugly duckling for now. And I'll be back in a minute after I go and collect another load of ice with the ugly duckling, because I would like to keep things charging up here. With the core of the missile laid out, I now need to work out how I'm going to be able to see what's going on. So I'm going to need to have a camera up in the nose cone, as well as being able to control everything as each stage is deployed. So I'll need a camera internally here, probably. So we have a camera internally there. That'll allow us to see the deployment of all of the warheads as they go. And our remote, nice and tucked away safely at the rear. Same with our antenna, should be safely tucked away. Don't want to accidentally get in gun range and lose it. Gonna need some strong gyroscopic stabilization on this thing, since we're moving large grid blocks as well. Again, let's put them... I'm gonna try and keep all of the functional stuff down at the base here. Give us our best chance of survival if everything goes horribly wrong. 4 gyros should be enough. Need to now place the atmospheric thrusters that I plan to use as stabilizing thrust. Go with 3 each way like that. That will work out okay, I think. So we can just go and stick a couple of armor blocks on there to allow us to place the ones on each side in the same position. Because I want this missile to look cool as well, since it's going to be on display in the main base. Even after I've used it, I'm going to keep it on display there because, yeah, I hope it's going to look cool at the end. This needs to somehow have reverse thrusters that aren't going to cook the internals, but also aren't going to be attached to the fairings. I wonder if I can place one... I should be able to place one here. And another one on the other side. And if we go and put a merge block over... Oh, nuts. Did I just... Oh, I did do that with the camera. Let's get rid of the camera. Let's get rid of that block. Pop our merge block in there. Then put a camera on top of that. Then we can go and put our atmospheric thrusters on either side. And I'm going to have to be clever with how I do the fairings so that they don't attach to those thrusters at all. And also don't obstruct them, because those are going to be internal. So I need to make sure I don't cook things with it. So we've got gyroscopes. We've got our power. We've got our directional thrust, which doesn't need to be exceptionally strong, just needs to be enough to give us a reasonable ability to target. The dream here is to be able to go high enough above the enemy base that I'm basically going to plummet straight down at it. Don't know how well I'm going to pull that off, but I'm going to give it a go anyway. So thinking this through, we've got directional thrust everywhere we need it. We'll have a remote control block. We'll have our gyroscopes. We've got our power source for our hydrogen thrusters and our atmospheric thrusters. We've got our antenna, which we'll be able to set to our max range. Then all I should need to do is set this thing up so that we've got clear names for all of the parts to ensure that I don't detach the wrong things first. And I have an idea in mind for setting up the controls to make that even clearer. One of the problems I often have when I've got things just arranged on hotbars like they are here is that I don't know which way, I don't really remember which way I did it. So what I'm thinking of is doing this like a staging system. So everything on hotbar 1 will be the first stage. So that's going to be our nose cone. The detachment for the nose cone will be on stage 1. Then stage 2, I'll have the fairings. Stage 3, this warhead. Stage 4, this one. Stage 5, this one. And that'll be on each sequential hotbar. Yeah, it's an extra button to have to press to switch between them, but it means I know which one I'm looking at because there's a clear marker of what's happening. Since I can just follow the hotbar numbers and I will remember, hopefully, by just looking at how many hotbars I've got, which stage I'm up to. Fingers crossed that actually works. But that's the dream. That's the theory. I'm not certain it'll work, but it might. Might? I know that control... I've been told that Control Shift B should give me a blueprint of just that grid. But I wonder if that excludes the warheads, because I kind of want to get a blueprint of the missile at various stages. But what I may need to do is, once it's complete, take it into creative mode and cut away bits so that we can put the different blueprints up on those conference tables. But what I need to do now is start designing this armor for our fairings. So what we're going to need to do is have the armor set up in such a way that they meet, but they don't meet with an edge that can actually connect. And the way that I would do that is by having a block like that, then we're on top here, coming over here, and having another one like that. These two pieces will separate, but at least visually, they'll completely block off what's behind them, which is exactly what I'm after. So something like that should work pretty well. I am slightly tempted to save on weight with this thing and have it have air gaps down the sides. I think I will. Because if the fairings have these nice gaps, I can put decoys in those gaps rather than having to have any bulges. And it'll give it a bit more detail, but mainly it's going to save a lot of weight, which should save us a lot of fuel. And that is really important. Because fuel, I think, is going to become an issue with how far this has to fly. Oh. Just realized something. Definitely should have gotten around to building that missile launcher trailer for the Goose, because then I could have built this onto the Goose and launched it from, you know, just 5k's away. But I really want to launch from the silo, so I was torn on that one. Oh well. Maybe one day I'll build a Scud launcher truck. For those of you that have also watched Survival Unlikely, you'd know why I'm getting panicky about all of this armor. That yellow rocket that I tried to take to the moon initially had heaps and heaps of armor detailing on it. And I'm pretty sure that was a big part of its undoing. I'd gone way overboard with the mass on the mass that it had on it, and that dramatically reduced its range, as well as just making these engines, even though they're stupidly powerful, appear nowhere near strong enough. And I am trying to work out the right balance here without having any means to really test this, because once it launches, this thing's not coming back. It's done. It has one shot. May need to do some testing in creative so that this doesn't go terribly wrong. But I'm going to build up the armor of all of these fairings and get rid of these bits around the edge here, since I don't really need the guides anymore. I'm pretty sure I'm comfortably keeping inside this margin now. That'll make it a little easier for me to fly around. But then we can start setting this thing up for deployment. Yeah. Well, since this is the Ultrudolf, it's going to need to be red on the nose cone. And I'll probably introduce some red and maybe a bit of the yellow and some of the other colors that we typically use around the base. But I did start thinking that perhaps I shouldn't finish off all of the armor before I start setting this up properly. So I'm going to need all of the controls laid out and all of that, since it's going to make it a lot easier for me to identify which merge block is which. Specifically, which is the internal merge block and which is the external one. Although I suppose that doesn't really matter. It just does make things much easier setting up the controls when I can just fly around, find the block, use build vision, and identify which it is that way. As I've always found it a bit more difficult, and it would be even more difficult covered in armor, to use the show on HUD and the antenna. So what that means is I'm going to stop here for today, and next time we're going to come back with the missile already set up, and then I can talk through its controls, and it means I get to do a nice big reveal of what this missile's going to look like when it's finished. Which is a bit different to how I normally do things, but I don't feel like watching me build this missile is going to be the most thrilling exercise, as I've talked through the main points that I wanted to, which is that the way that the armor attaches to other armor is important when we're trying to build something that has fairings like this. So next time, I'm going to reveal the work that I have already done on the base, because I've done some interesting things. Then I'm going to reveal the missile, and then, at some point next time, in episode 111, we are going to attempt to do the thing that I said I would do in episode 1. We're going to blow up the enemy base. So there's all that, and well, there's probably still plenty more to come in many other ways, and I will see you then.